Tatooine, the iconic image of Luke Skywalker staring out at the setting twin suns. For those who have seen these films, you all know what I'm talking about. For those of you who haven't, bear with me. For all intents and purposes, the planet Tatooine does not exist. In our galaxy, at least. But this place, this setting, if you will, has been etched into my memory since I was 6 years old. But why? It's not real. It doesn't have to be. A well-created fictional place doesn't have to be from our world for us to buy into it. Setting affects every element of our story.
I'm gonna tell you this one time, Jack fucking Twist. And I ain't fooling. What I don't know, all them things that I don't know, could get you killed if I come to know them. I ain't joking.
Yeah, we'll try this one. And I'll say it just once.
Go ahead.
Tell you what, we could have had a good life together. Fucking real good life. Had us a place of our own. But you didn't want it, Ennis. So what we got now is Brokeback Mountain.
Would it have been so hard for Ennis to settle down with Jack if he hadn't been a product of the Old West? He's been hardened and molded by his setting to the point where he'll choose to be miserable rather than be with Jack. Jack and Ennis's story is ultimately tragic, but it's a real story told in the real world. What happens if we choose to create a setting outside of this world? Tolkien's Lord of the Rings is a fictionalized fantasy world, but it's a world with clear rules and clear stakes for the characters, and moreover, there's realness and specificity to the place that allows us to see it clearly. The world is rich and layered. There's an atmosphere to it. But what is atmosphere? Here we have two primary components. We have our setting, Isla Nublar, off the coast of Costa Rica, Jurassic Park, where John Hammond has been breeding dinosaurs from recovered DNA. It's the early 90s, overcast, mid-afternoon I'd say, etc. Easy, basic, grounding facts. But we also, in addition to setting, have a tone. Keep an eye out.
Yep. You got that? That storm center hasn't dissipated or changed course. We're gonna have to cut the tour short, I'm afraid. Pick it up again tomorrow where we left off.
Are you sure we have to? It's not worth taking the chance, John.
Well, sustained winds 45
Tell them
knots.
when they get back in the cars.
Yep. Sure.
Ladies and
Thanks,
gentlemen, last shuttle leaving for the dock leaves in approximately 5 minutes. Drop what you're doing and leave now.
So what do we know? There's a storm coming that we know is going to turn into a tropical storm that will make the ultimate T-Rex attack all the more terrifying. Setting and tone make the atmosphere.
Well, what can I tell you? Life in the wide world goes on much as it has this past day.
Going back to hobbits, if we use the analogy of a painting, we think of foreground and background. If a character is our foreground, then the setting naturally becomes the background. There can be both harmony and conflict between the foreground and background, or between our characters and their setting. With this example, we see that our foreground is very much in harmony with our background.
Half the Shire's been invited. He's up to something.
And here we see characters very much in conflict with their setting. Beyond that, place can also tell us a great deal about the characters that inhabit them. Here we get an intimate look at two characters inhabiting their respective spaces in Joe Wright's adaptation of Ian McEwan's Atonement.
Dammi il braccio, mia vicina.
Yes, there is a very bad word in this that has been edited out. Intimate, right? Let's crank this up a notch. A character's relation to place is charged with emotion. In Luca Guadagnino's adaptation of Andre Aciman's Call Me By Your Name, Elio and Oliver are drawn together over the course of a summer in the Italian countryside.
I love this, Oliver. What? Everything. Us, you mean? It's not bad. It's not bad.
And then it gets a little racy. In the controversial film Mother by Darren Aronofsky, a pregnant young woman renovates an old house. This house becomes the focal point of a terrifying biblical allegory as strangers arrive from nowhere to invade the space. We come to learn that the house itself stands as a symbol for something much bigger. The setting is being used as a commentary on the action. Spooky, right? So if you'll join me back on Tatooine for a second, I'd just like to point out, once again, that whether a place is familiar or unfamiliar has nothing to do with whether the reader actually knows the place. So what have we learned? What does place incorporate? Is it useful to our story? History, detail, tone, harmony, conflict, emotion, all of these facets become layered into the portrait we know as Fictional Place.